Hello again, this is Steve, Dichroic Glassman. We're ready to start the process of taking this piece of glass out. At this point, I'm going to put flux on my solder. Instead of flipping the whole panel over, I'm going to reach underneath and I'm going to put flux on underneath on this same line. You could get underneath there and do it. It's easy for me to just do it upside down. Okay, now I've got flux on that. I want everything to be flowing. Okay, now I'm going to take my glass cutter and I'm making a little series of lines about a ½ an inch apart, crisscross. Now, I'm going to do something kind of fun. Instead of tapping underneath, which you can take your glass cutter and using the end, and you can tap underneath, as you can kind of see the shadow here of my glass cutter. I could tap that and break that glass. I like to do something kind of fun. This one, I want you to try this so that you could see how much heat it takes to break glass. So, I'm going to take my solder. Why do I need solder? Because I'm going to put a solder ball on top of my glass. And I'm rolling it around on the flux. And my glass is breaking. I want you to get a feel for how much heat it takes. Some people spend too much time soldering their window and it breaks. This is an opportunity in a constructive way of seeing what kind of heat it takes to break a piece of glass. So I have a solder ball, as you can see, and all I'm doing is rolling it around on my surface and it's breaking the glass. I know this is kind of a strange way of doing things. I put my solder, get it out of there. Now I'm going to put my soldering iron away. And yes, all I got to do is lightly tap my glass. And I could come underneath. By the way, I'm wearing safety glasses. Didn't mention that, but I need you to realize you're going to need safety glasses. There you go. It popped right out, straight into the trash can underneath. That way I'm collecting all my glass shards. I don't want them on the floor, don't want them on my feet. Okay, pretty good. I don't have to get every piece out. That's all I need. Let's see. There you go. I'm creating a cavity. At this point, I like using steel wool on my iron. I'm not going to do this on the window. I would do this over the trash can. So I'm going to reach underneath. Now, I'm going to take my grozers and I'm going to grab any fragments and I'm going to lightly unsolder the piece and pull it right out. Dropped right below. I'm going to unsolder this whole cavity along the edge, taking care that I maintain my solder, my foiled edge from the pieces that are still good. It's going to make sense here in a second. As I heat up my solder, my glass will come out here in a second, making sure you're not tearing the foil away at all. We need that foil. Watch this video before you attempt doing this. Okay. My glass is dropping perfectly in the can, right below. Now I have a nice open cavity. If I want to take my X-Acto knife, right here, heat up my foil, and put it into the foil so that it separates. You can see I'm giving it a twisted action, turning it so that my blade gets in between the foil. There you go. Now I can grab that piece of foil. I'm going to cut it. It's a lot easier. There you go. Now I'm going to grab one of those ends and up with my grozers. Don't want to touch it because it's very hot. You see what's happening? I'm pulling my foil away and it's leaving the foil on this piece, all the way around. Okay, now we got to get this, and we'll do a close-up. Only do this for a second. You don't want to be popping any more glass around it. We're already doing a repair. There's no sense in doing more repairs than are necessary. I try to avoid putting any of my tools, solder, anything else, glass fragments on my panel. The foil tore, it's no problem, using my X-Acto knife while I'm heating it up. And if you need to, just apply a little bit more flux. There, it's nice and clean. It's a real tight corner. There you go. So as you're dapping it, you're soldering iron. Now I'll grab my pliers. Can grab it. It's hot. I'm not grabbing it with my fingers. There you go. I'm pulling my solder away from the previous, this piece here, keeping vigil. There you go. Now, utilizing my grozers, I'm going to get all these pieces out of the way. Very cooperative. It's a pleasure repairing glass. I don't mind a bit because I have a good process. Grab my pliers, pull my foil. You got to be really tender with this because you don't want to pull your previous foil, this one, off. Now you're asking for more problems, and we're not going to address that in this video. Okay, going to use more flux. I could pretty much touch this now. It's very cooled down. Now I'm pulling my foil this way, away from the previous piece. I get full cooperation by doing that. I'm going to have a nice clean cavity when I'm done. Okay. Now I need to get these other pieces out of the way. So I'm heating up my solder. Taking care. I'm being very gentle. My pieces are dropping perfectly. There you go. One last piece of glass left. Voila! I have a totally open cavity. Now, coming back. Just cooperating perfectly. Love it. when a plan comes together, as that guy used to say in the A-Team. Good. Drop it. Okay. Now I don't want any jagged edges from foil or from solder. So what I want is a nice clean cavity. No bumpy edges. I'm getting all the solder off. It's melting from the bottom side and everything. Everything is beautifully cooperating. I have a nice, make sure that your corners are nice and cleaned. Take your flux brush. You may not be able to use your flux brush again. Doesn't matter. It's somewhat melting it and destroying my flux brush. They're cheap. They're only 50 cents or thereabouts or $1. There you go. There you go. Okay. At this point, I'll come over to my camera. Let's see if we can get a close-up. Everything is looking great. My edges are nice and perfect. This is already cooled down by now, folks. Nice clean cavity that I have to work with. So now you can go after this point to repair the glass. I'm going to check underneath just to see if there's any drippage of solder, and there's none. Perfect. Just perfect. So at this point, I've got a cooperative cavity ready to retrofit the next piece of glass. So let's save the video and go to the next. Bye-bye.